Hi, everyone. Good evening, and welcome back to week 2 of the Natural Grocers Live Keto Reset class series. My name is Erin Dahl, and I am a registered dietitian as well as the Senior Nutrition Education Specialist here at Natural Grocers, and I am your host throughout our series. We are so excited to have you join us today for another fun educational class led by our nutritional health coaches. And this week is super exciting because we will be zooming in and focusing on lifestyle habits to support keto success. Before we begin, though, just a reminder that there will be another live Q&A session immediately following our class today. So be sure to stick around for that if you'd like to have your questions answered. If you would like to submit a question, please do so in the YouTube chat pane provided. Of note, you do have to be watching the class on YouTube to be able to use the chat pane. So if you're watching directly from our website, you will not see a chat pane. So if you're on the Natural Grocers website and you would like to transition to YouTube, just click on the title of the class located at the top of the video that you're watching and next to our Natural Grocers logo. So again, if you want to get access to that chat pane on YouTube and you're watching from our Natural Grocers website, go ahead and transition to the YouTube website by just clicking on the title of the class located at the top of the video that you're watching and next to our Natural Grocers logo. And just one last note that all questions will be held until the end of our class today and asked during our Q&A session. Okay, enough with announcements. Let's go ahead and jump into our material today. So guiding us through week 2 is Kevin Iski, who is the NHC at our San Antonio, Texas store. Kevin received his degree in nutrition and dietetics from Texas State University in San Marcos, Texas. He worked for an international nutrition company where he has over 7 years of experience educating the public about supplements and wellness. And he's been the NHC with Natural Grocers, or an NHC with Natural Grocers, for 4 years. And Kevin has a strong passion for helping the community better understand and practice sound nutrition. Other favorite pastimes of his include kayaking, fishing, and hanging out with his 2 cats, Namaria and Rue. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today and guiding us through week 2. And I will go ahead and let you take it away.
All right. Thank you, Erin, so much for the introduction. And I want to thank everyone for joining me today for week 2 of the Keto Reset Diet web series. Now, last week, we learned about the blood sugar roller coaster, benefits of nutritional ketosis, building healthy meals. And this week, I'm so excited to discuss the often overlooked lifestyle factors that are not only going to support you through this keto reset, but will also be the foundation for living a happier and healthier life. I also want to remind you that we will be following Mark Sisson's Keto Reset Diet book. So if you haven't picked up a copy yet, I highly recommend that you stop by your local Natural Grocers. It is 30% off all the way through March. It has over 100 great recipes. It's really easy to read, and we're actually covering chapters 7 and 8 of that book today. So before we get too far, I have to remind you that this class is not intended to diagnose, treat, mitigate disease. Dietary supplements and food can interact with prescription medications, so if you are taking a prescription medication, please become informed about the possible interactions. Now, in order to support your progress towards fat adaptation, you have to bring into balance things like exercise, sleep, stress management. Failing in these areas of lifestyle can be complete deal breakers for your keto success. So let's take a look at what we're going over today. We mentioned exercise, sleep, stress management. We haven't forgot about nutrition, though. We're going to be talking about nutrition tracking tools, reading food labels, and even minimizing your eating window, otherwise known as intermittent fasting. So I want y'all to just look at this list and do a mental check mark or a mental circle and see the one that you're maybe dealing or struggling with the most. We're going to come back to that at the very end and develop a SMART goal so we can address that area of struggle in your life. Speaking of struggle, an area that a lot of us have struggled with, and maybe over the last year or two or forever, is exercise. It's really difficult to find time in our busy lives, maybe to go to the gym or to gear up and go to the park. It might even be hard to just find the energy to walk around the block after a long day. But thankfully, there's a ton of methods that we can use to stay active. So I really want y'all to focus on the primary objective, which is increasing all forms of general everyday movement. Now, when we think about it that way, it's actually not that bad. Just increase everyday movement. So actually, if you guys could text in the chat panel some ways y'all like to move frequently throughout the day, I'm sure we'd love to hear it. I'll bring up a couple of the things I do myself. So again, we want to move frequently. We want to avoid stillness by working in deliberate practices. So some things I do at work, if I have an office day, I'm at the computer more often than not. I like to get up, do some customer sweeps, maybe help with cart runs, help a department manager. I've even seen some people with standing desks before, and we even have one employee here who has bike pedals under her desk. So I guess they're out there somewhere, but just try to actively avoid being still. Now, moving on to aerobic workouts, when we actually find time to do a little bit more in the day, we want to jump to aerobic workouts. This is going to be actually something we do 2 hours a week. So it might be swimming, biking, running, jogging, even power walking. Whatever you may have to do, you can do that for 2 hours a week. Now, we also want to be below our maximum aerobic heart rate. If you're like me, you hadn't heard of what that was before, it's actually really easy. So you're just going to take 180 and you're going to subtract your age. So if you're 40, you're going to take that 180 minus 40, and you're going to get 140 beats per minute that you don't want to exceed. And you're going, well, why wouldn't I want to exceed that? Well, because as Mark Sisson says in his book, exceeding that number can actually create us to want to crave sugar. And that is not what we want to do. We're going to be working out past that maximum aerobic heart rate. We're actually going to start craving that sugar, and we want to use ketones. Remember, we want to do slow burning logs, as they talked about last week, versus that high energy, fast burning paper that doesn't burn as clean. So just don't exceed that maximum aerobic heart rate. There's lots of ways to track it. I know there's watches out there that are available. There's even some like equipment at the gym that you grab onto, and it'll tell you those beats per minute. So moving on to when we can lift heavy things, that's the next thing we want to focus on. That's only going to be for short bouts of about 30 minutes. Now, I do have a quick workout that you might want to consider, so just hear me out for this. You're going to take a 5-pound potato bag, and you're going to hold it in front of your body for a minute. And then you're going to move on to a 25-pound potato bag, hold that in front of your body for about a minute. Maybe after a week or so, you can graduate to a 100-pound potato bag, holding it out in front of your body for a minute. Now, after you've done all that, you can consider putting potatoes in the bag. So it's kind of funny. When I read lifting heavy things at first, I know that means different things to different people. So we want to be careful to not hurt ourselves when we're lifting heavy things, and everyone's a little different there. So what's this going to do? It's actually going to help support our fight or flight hormonal response. This is something we want to keep in check, but we don't want to over chronically stimulate it through maybe lifestyle factors like poor sleep or not working out enough, or maybe we're just stressed out. We don't want to chronically stimulate that, but we want to stimulate it enough through things like lifting. It's also going to help build lean muscle. Lean muscle is going to give us a great metabolism. It's going to help us look real good. So we want to lift heavy things about 30 minutes when we're doing it a couple times a week. Now, finally, we move on to sprinting once in a while. Now, this is actually only done about every 7 to 10 days. So maybe you can pick a time 2 times a month that you can sprint. Now, this also can be low impact as well. So if you don't want to just sprint on the concrete, you can still go out and do a rowing exercise or an elliptical machine. But we definitely want to squeeze that into our month. It's also going to stimulate our fight or flight hormonal response. And it's going to make us lean, mean, fat burning machines. Now, we always want to remember with workouts to do proper warm up and cool downs. We want to do proper stretching. And when we're doing these sprints, I want to note that we want to feel nice and springy and really good that day. We don't want to do it when we're feeling real sluggish. Now, exercising also creates things called endorphins, which are our feel-good hormones. It's going to make us feel absolutely blissful after we finish these. Now, if we're having trouble with workouts, another thing you can consider are some good supplements. So some things that I like, I actually like beetroot powder before a workout, and that's going to really help with nitric oxide support. It's going to oxygenate my muscles and give me some energy. There's things like branched chain amino acids and proteins that you can consider as well. If you go to the gym and you've been there before and you're just completely sore afterwards and it makes you not want to go back, things like branched chain amino acids and proteins can be really beneficial to keep that soreness down and to help build that lean muscle. And then once we are more keto adapted or metabolically flexible, we can actually consider using things like exogenous ketones. As Mark Sisson says in his book, these can be really great energy boosts and pre-workouts, especially when you're keto adapted. I think he plays ultimate frisbee like a champ, he says, or something like that in his book. So consider those as well. Now, all this talk about exercise has actually made me a little sleepy. So we're going to go into sleep. Now, I do have a quick funny, I guess, I came across the other day. So I'll share it with you. It said, I finally got my 8 hours of sleep. It took me 3 days, but whatever. But the truth is, we don't always get enough sleep. But why is it important? Well, it organizes memories. It's going to normalize hormone levels. It's actually going to support our immune system. It's going to help with our muscle recovery after that great workout we just did. It's even going to support hormones that make us feel full. But if we are on the other end of the spectrum and we don't get enough sleep, we can feel really down and out. According to one study, 17 to 50% of subjects with insomnia lasting 2 weeks or longer developed a major depressive episode reported in that later interview. So we don't want to feel like that. We want to feel good. So thankfully, there's a lot of different things that we can do to improve upon our sleep and help us conquer that next day. So it all starts with behavior. We want to create a calming bedtime routine. So I'll share with you some things that I do. And if you want to chip in on the comment panel and let us know what you do, we'd love to hear it as well. So some things we want to focus on. I actually have a program on my phone that kind of beeps at me real subtly and tells me, hey, it's time to go to bed in about an hour. So that tells me I need to start hanging it up. I need to turn off the TV maybe, or put down my phone, maybe finish up that quick chore I was doing. Whatever it may be, we want to start hanging it up. Now, one of the reasons we want to hang up some of the lights, like our LCD screens and our phones, and maybe even some light bulbs emit some of these blue light, actually. And this is a wavelength that actually keeps us from producing our natural sleep hormone, which is melatonin. So this behavioral method is actually going to really help us start naturally wanting to produce melatonin so we get a better night's sleep. And I got to throw in, I really like taking a swig of magnesium water just to calm my nervous system down. So after we've finished brushing our teeth, we're ready to crash into bed. How does our sleep environment look? That's our next point. We want to redesign our bedroom into an organized, dark, cool, and quiet place. So we'll start with being organized, something I might need to work on, getting some of the laundry out of the way, whatever you may need to do to get it organized, to subconsciously feel like you've achieved something good. When you wake up in the morning, you see that clean bedroom and you're good to go. We also want it nice and dark. So I actually have like this blinding street lamp outside of my bedroom that peers in every night, and I ended up getting some light blinding shades. So I highly recommend getting it as dark as possible. We also want to focus on getting a cool room. So of course I use my fan. I try to keep the temperature down to a nice cool point, 70 or under, but whatever you can do, fans seem to help as well. But we want to do that and keep it nice and quiet. So again, turning off those devices, shutting down that TV that might be in your bedroom, and really getting ready for the evening. Now I'm going to skip napping, and I'm going to come back to it here in a second, but we're going to go talk about timing. So your body loves to go to sleep and wake up at the same time. Your melatonin will actually naturally taper off, and your serotonin will naturally rise in the morning if your timing is good. So who actually likes being scared out of their boots from that radar alarm every morning? I don't. It scares the heck out of me. And so let's try to avoid that with good timing, so we start waking up when the sun actually naturally starts coming up, when the birds start chirping. So moving on to napping. If you do have time in your day to take a high quality nap, I encourage you to do so for maybe 15, 20 minutes. It's going to really help you reorganize your thoughts, be a little more clear, maybe be a little more productive. And again, we want to do this in a cool and dark place, if possible. Now, if none of this stuff is working that we talked about, you're doing all this already, your behavior is great, your room's perfectly clean, you're doing a ton of stuff right, there are some supplements that can help support healthy sleep. So just to name a few, I like theanine. Theanine helps make alpha waves, and alpha waves are actually something we make if we like meditate really hard. It's a very calming brainwave. There's also supplemental melatonin that you can take. Valerian and passion flower, just to name a few. So if you're having a lot of trouble, you might need to reach out to natural grocers and maybe pick up a supplement that might help you along the way too. Okay, so let's imagine we didn't get enough sleep and we haven't been eating well, we forgot to exercise, and we're feeling, you guessed it, really, really stressed out. So our ancestors actually lived really mellow lives. They only needed to use their fight or flight stimuli occasionally. But now we live in this fast-paced environment and society more than ever before, so we really need to focus on managing our stress. Thankfully, there are a bunch of ways that we have to help you out with that. I mean, there's probably hundreds of thousands of ways. So if y'all have some good ways that you like to deal with stress, please let us know in the chat panel. But we'll move on to some of the big ones that Mark Sisson liked to point out. So the first one is connecting. We want to nurture our intimate circle of family and also our social circle of friends. So again, whatever that may be, keeping in contact with your loved ones or your friends. I know it's tougher these days, but we have great options like we're doing now with video chat, calling them up on the phone, writing them a letter, and then when we can hang out more later on, doing that. But we want to make sure and connect. Now we're going to move on to practicing digital discipline. So we talked about that around bedtime, about hanging up the devices, but really you should practice digital discipline throughout the day. So if you're at the office for 8 hours and it's a computer kind of day, make sure to take at least every 2 hours, take a break from the computer, move around, maybe go outside, breathe some fresh air. I know Mark Sisson pointed out, even focusing on distant objects can actually clear your mind. And so just getting away from some of the tech for a little bit and letting your brain relax. We also want to make sure that we're focusing on one task at a time versus stressing ourselves out by multitasking all these things at once. We want to feel like we can complete one thing at a time and move on to the next one. So those are just some tips on digital discipline. Now we're going to move on to exercise, and it's so nice we're going to say it twice. So try walking, stay connected with nature, actively avoid sitting as much as possible, keep up with your workout routines. You really just want to do a really good job in this area because it's going to help you significantly no matter what program you're doing. And then make sure to have lots of fun. So smile more, enjoy things that you do every day. I don't like washing dishes at all, and my wife doesn't like washing dishes at all either, and I think I always get tasked with washing the dishes. But what do? I put on some of my favorite tunes or maybe some sports radio, and then I end up enjoying it more. So find something that, even if you don't like to do, try to have fun with it. And let us know what y'all like to do for fun as well. Now, moving on to making gratitude journals. Now, I think of this around Thanksgiving. We're all standing around the circle and we're trying to come up with that thing that we're thankful for when it comes to our turn. But really, as a whole, we don't practice this very often, gratitude journals. So maybe get a cheap notepad and take the time to write down something you're thankful for every day. Then you can go back and reflect on those things, all those great things that life has to offer. And then moving on to my favorite, maybe besides exercise, which is making personal time. This is one of my favorite things to do on the list. I actually go on my back porch and I play guitar. It gives me time to reflect and unwind. I also do this in my personal time because I definitely need the practice. So find that thing that you love to do and take that personal time for yourself. Now, it really, when I think of personal time, I got to say, looking at this picture of the lady sitting on the hay bale, she is at peace. She's completely content. Now, I know I'm in Texas. I'm going to tell you the truth, though. There are not a lot of hay bales in San Antonio. However, I told myself that even if I can't find a hay bale to sit on, I'm going to do my best to find my own personal hay bale. So whether that's on the back porch playing guitar, maybe it's finding the perfect rock to sit on to enjoy the view from a hike. I implore you all to find your personal hay bale where you can reflect and take personal time. Now, all of these steps we talked about are going to really help you maintain pure motivation moving forward with this program. So let's jump gears actually and talk a little bit about nutrition and eating programs. So let's start with tracking our nutrition. This is going to better help us recognize and achieve our health goals. So there's really three main points to why we might want to track nutrition. First, it's going to bring a lot of mindfulness and accountability to our eating. So we might think twice about grabbing that bag of chips or that big old candy bar if we know that we have to actually put it in our tracking app after we've eaten it. So it's going to bring a lot of accountability to what we actually purchase. It's also going to just assist in your macronutrient numbers. So it's going to tell you all the proteins and carbs and fats that you ate throughout the day. And it can be really difficult to grasp those numbers just by putting them in your head. So this is really going to help identify those red flags of your eating patterns. And then you're going to be able to quickly make an adjustment. So you might look at that and go, oh, shoot, I didn't have enough fiber for the day. Or, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that that was so many carbs. I went above my goal. Or I'm just not getting enough protein. And so this is going to be really useful, especially if you're not accustomed to tracking nutrition. So thankfully, there's a ton of great free apps available for you to track your nutrition. Just to name a few, we have on the right here, Chronometer. We have Keto Gains. There's Fit Day. There's Carb Manager. There's MyFitnessPal. There is like a ton of stuff that you can use free to you to track your nutrition. If y'all have a good nutrition tracking app, let us know in the chat panel what that might be, and yeah, share with us, please. So we actually have our own tracking app built into our own brains that we can use all the time, and it can be game changing. It's my favorite thing to do in the grocery store. It's reading food labels. So I might try to find the perfect salad dressing or the best low carb option for some type of bread. I'm probably a nerd when it comes to this, but it's really an invaluable tool that you can use to make really good food decisions. So what do I like to look at? Okay, there's kind of a lot of things you can look at, and that's why I should mention this CLF file right here on the screen is a fantastic resource that you can have for free from Natural Grocers. So I really implore you to pick it up at any of your Natural Grocers stores. It's going to give you the steps you need to take to read food labels. But going back to what I like to see, first off, I really like seeing USDA organic. I think that it's going to basically tell me that it should be free of synthetic fertilizers, synthetic pesticides, that it's inherently non-GMO. So it's going to be a pretty clean product right off the bat. And that's usually right there on the front in that big, beautiful green and white circle. So USDA organic is nice to see. But even if it's USDA organic, we still have to be careful about what we're consuming, especially with the Keto Reset. So we're going to flip that package around and we're going to actually look maybe for the serving size. We're going to get a general idea of a realistic amount of food that we might actually consume. If those servings are really high and the amount's really low, well, we might end up eating the whole package. So we want to be careful about servings. Of course, you're going to want to look at carbs and sugars. You're going to want to see those pretty low, actually. And maybe not there at all would be good. Remember, we want to get most of our carbs from healthy vegetables and like super low sugar fruits, That's where we're looking at to get our carbs, not necessarily from as many packaged foods. We also want to see really good fiber and protein on the label. That's going to help us balance our blood sugar and keep us out of the blood sugar roller coaster. I also really like to look at the ingredient list. So I want to see they're using healthy fats, or maybe there's just some unfamiliar words on there. I think there's the saying, if grandma don't recognize it, don't buy it. And that is kind of true, right? We don't want to buy something that we don't recognize what it is. There's a lot of dangerous food additives in the marketplace today that we have to be careful of. So those are just some considerations. Now, we will be covering this in a little more depth in our customer support groups following this class with your respective NHCs. So just stay tuned for that. But those are just some tidbits on reading food labels. Okay, so now that we have our tracking app, we have some great food purchases. We're good at reading labels. The question is when do we actually eat this food? So this is another thing we're going to go over. Now, one strategy you may want to use to stimulate further improvement before entering nutritional ketosis includes experimenting with minimizing your eating window. This is also known as intermittent fasting. This is going to teach you to listen to your hunger signals and improve your metabolic flexibility. So one of the main goals of this program is to be metabolically flexible. We want to be able to do this keto diet for a little bit, but then maybe transition into a paleo diet that gives us more variety. And then we can switch back onto keto if we want and back off to paleo if we want, but we're going to be able to transition very easily. So intermittent fasting can be tricky at first, especially if we've been living on that blood sugar roller coaster for a while. But with some practice, our bodies will start recognizing nutritional ketones more effectively. It's going to help with healthy weight maintenance. It can even support healthy cellular replication. It can do a whole bunch of great stuff for you. So how do we start? Well, this is just a quick guide to fasted mornings. There's a lot more to it that we're going to cover in our customer support group and probably in our Q&A session. But for now, let's go over this. So what we want to do is we want to aim to finish dinner at least 2 hours before bedtime. We don't want those late night snacks. As we talked about in our behavior slide on sleep, we want to avoid those late night snacks. So once your last meal starts, that starts the clock for your intermittent fast. Now, when it comes to when do we eat, we're going to use the WHEN approach. It's an acronym for when hunger ensues naturally. So that's going to be the following morning. We're going to try not to just force ourselves to eat right when we wake up out of habit, but we're actually going to try to work on eating when we actually are hungry. So that might mean taking your breakfast to work with you or whatever it may be, but just to try to stretch that eating window or that fasting window a little further. Ideally, we're looking for a 14 to 16 hour fast, but that doesn't happen overnight. So we're going to build onto that. All right. So we've talked about eating, but drinking caloric beverages can actually throw you off your fast as well. So make sure to drink plenty of non-caloric beverages during your fast. So that could be things like coffee, green tea, water. I actually like Topo Chicos or some kind of like non-caloric sparkling waters. But there's some options out there. Just make sure you look at that food label. You don't want to see calories on there. That's going to throw you right out of your fast. Now, in the beginning, you should expect normal concentration and energy levels. But if you start experiencing things like fatigue and brain fog, insomnia, if you're feeling really irritable, if you're getting just hangry, you need to scale that intermittent fast back. Again, you want to slowly and gradually increase your fast, but you don't want to just push it to the limit right away, or you're going to feel very uncomfortable. So when we do eat, make sure to eat to satiety when we're not fasting. So when we have that first meal, we want to eat to where we're full, but we don't want to eat just like a big bowl of cereal and some orange juice. We want to opt for that low carb meal. So that might be something like they talked about last week. Maybe it's an omelet with spinach and mushrooms and, kale, and then you have a little bit of berries on the side with some green tea. But we don't want to start our day jumping on the blood sugar roller coaster because that's just going to combat everything we just worked on. So finally, I just want to mention that we want to go light on the exercise initially. So your body is still trying to become metabolically flexible. Once this happens, you're going to be able to use ketones as a really fantastic fuel source for a workout. Actually, take it from me, I've done keto on and off for a while now. And what I like to do is actually, from my normal workout where I'm not in keto, and I start jumping into an intermittent fast and going back into keto, I usually go about half the pace that I normally would for a couple weeks until I really feel comfortable jumping into that normal workout again. And then I found that I've actually exceeded that normal workout once I'm really burning ketones well. So I actually also really recommend you have to get the intermittent fast customer literature file at the store. It is actually the best resource, quick 3-page, I think, write-up on how to fast and why it's beneficial. It's one of the best things I've seen out there, and so it can really guide you into success. Now, remember when we talked about the SMART goals at the beginning of the presentation? You wanted to remember that thing that you really needed to work on. Well, this is where it's going to come into play, and actually our customer support group is where we're going to develop these. But a SMART goal basically gives you direction, motivation, focus. It clarifies the importance of an issue that you're struggling with. It actually activates our reticular activating system, which is going to help our brain kind of organize and make sense of a difficult problem. And then it's going to help us basically achieve that or drive to success with it. And so we're going to develop those SMART goals after in our community support groups. So just keep that problem you have in mind, because that's the one you're going to want to work on the most to fix. All right. So now we're at the end with our resources. We have amazing resources, whether it's recipe books or nutritional guides, customer literature files. There's my favorite intermittent fasting document. Recommend you getting with your NHC or a Good For You crew member. They can take you around to these resources and really help you in those areas that you might be struggling with. So Natural Grocers is a mecca for knowledge and education, and we want to pass that on to you as well. So with that, I just want to thank you for joining me. It's been a massive pleasure talking with y'all today. And if you're ever in the area, please feel free to swing by and say hello. I'm going to pass you on to Erin to cover our customer support groups, and I think we're going to do a follow-up Q&A session. So thank y'all so much.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kevin. I think it's safe to say we learned a lot from you today. You stimulated some great conversations in the chat pane, and everyone's talking about what their personal hay bale is. So thanks for that. Even with exercise, someone said that one of the ways they increase daily movement is running with their goats. So I just think that's so fun. Everyone's finding really unique and creative ways to get in that daily movement. So thanks for all that you added to today's presentation. Before we head to the Q&A, just a reminder that following the live class, you also have the opportunity to attend one of our local community support groups. These sessions are a great way for you to connect online with a nutritional health coach and your keto community, so you can expand on information that was presented in today's class. You can further your health goals, and you can also support one another in community. Of note, while you signed up to attend the live class today, so you did sign up to receive those reminders, there is a separate sign up on our website that you must complete to attend one of the community support sessions following the class. So to make it easier for you, someone from our admin team will be dropping a link to that sign up page in the YouTube chat pane provided. So be on the lookout for that if you are interested in joining in on one of those support sessions. All right, let's go ahead and move to the Q&A. Let's take some time to answer some questions from those of you at home. So to do so, we have a brilliant panel who I'll go ahead and introduce right now. So all panelists, go ahead and turn on your cameras and unmute yourselves. Of course, we've got Kevin Iski, who is the NHC at our San Antonio, Texas store. Yeah, and feel free to give everyone a wave so they know who you are. We have Rachel Ticer, who is the NHC at our Richardson, Texas store. Rachel graduated from the University of Texas at Dallas in Richardson, Texas, with a Bachelor's of Science in Biology. What she likes to do most is assist individuals in achieving a healthy balance of physical, mental, and emotional wellness, and she is now pursuing a master's degree in nutrition and functional medicine to gain further knowledge to help others. So welcome, Rachel, and thanks so much for supporting today. And then finally, we have Angeline Carrageen Winter, who is the NHC at our Fayetteville, Arkansas store. So she is a certified health coach through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, founded in New York City. And her second, her second career as a health coach was inspired by her own health issues, and her first career as a Spanish teacher enables her to support the Hispanic community of Northwest Arkansas. Angeline enjoys all aspects of health coaching, empowering individuals on their health journey, teaching classes, and doing cooking demonstrations. So welcome, everyone. Thanks for supporting with this question panel. And let's go ahead and get to our first question. So Kevin, you talked a lot about the importance of tracking this week. And we had some great conversations going on in the chat pane. People were sharing some of their favorite trackers, including Carb Manager, and there was another one called Lose It. They're also interested to hear from you guys as panelists. What are some of your favorite tracking tools out there? Rachel, go ahead.
I really like Chronometer. It's spelled like chronometer, but it's pronounced chronometer. And it's a really great one. It is a free app. You can get the app on your phone for convenience, or you can enter it into your desktop on your computer. What I really like is that it doesn't just track your macronutrients, so your protein, your fat, and your carbohydrate. It's also going to track your micronutrients. So that's your vitamins and minerals. And so when you enter your food on a daily basis, you may find trends in your diet. For example, you may find, wow, every single day I am really low on magnesium, for example. So that's somewhere where you could optimize your health by potentially adding a supplement or looking for some magnesium-rich foods to add to your diet. So for that reason, I like that you can have even more control on optimizing your health.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that differentiator, that it includes those micronutrients. When I tracked on Chronometer, that was something that I noticed that I really struggled with thiamine. So it just got me thinking about ways that I could increase that in my diet. Any other suggestions from our other panelists?
Well,
go ahead, Kevin.
Okay. I know, it was called Carb.
It was Carb Manager and Lose It are the ones they recommended.
Yeah, Carb Manager. I think a lot of our customers use that also, and so I think you can even take pictures of like the barcodes, and they have like pre-recorded foods and stuff in there, and so it like pops everything on there for you. So some of these apps have gotten just really advanced. I know when I was in school, we didn't have like these advancements in tracking nutrition. You'd have to get on this terrible program and really document it hard, and it was always so tough, and they've gotten better and better. MyFitPal, I think, is another really good one I've liked in the past. I thought it was pretty sweet. And Chronometer is what I've used a lot as well. So those would be my top three probably.
Yeah, MyFitnessPal is definitely great, but I also love the idea of being able to scan your foods and just easily add them in there. So it sounds like we've come a long way with different
Yes.
tracking tools. So awesome. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and move right along because I want to make sure we get through our questions. So we're going to transition into some questions about intermittent fasting because we did talk a little bit about that this evening. So this person is asking, can I do the keto diet and fast at the same time? Maybe trying a strategy like 20 hours of fasting with a 4-hour eating window. What are your thoughts on doing a combination like that and also timing of it? Angeline, I think I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, so, I think I would ask for more information. I think that if you're already in ketosis where you are fat adapted and you're burning fats, you're going to have plenty of energy to fast that long. But I also would recommend, I'm a little hesitant to say that, would be the most ideal thing because, I wonder in 4 hours, can you get all of the nutrition that you need, all the calories that you need in a day? And so, and we definitely know that it's not good to overeat. It's not good for digestion. So we don't, want to eat the biggest meals. But we know that when we do keto, we want to eat plenty of fats. There's a certain, calculation for protein. So are you getting enough protein in the day? Are you getting your 50 carbs or so, 50 grams of carbs? And so I would highly recommend tracking your food using these apps, one of these apps, to make sure that you're getting what you need. So I would be hesitant to recommend that. I would actually extend the eating window a bit.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a good point that you made, that intermittent fasting is not necessarily calorie restriction. It's just, limiting a period of time where you're not eating, but oftentimes you're getting all the calories in during that eating window where you are eating. So I think that's a great point that you made. And tracking while you're eating during that window can definitely help make sure that you're getting the nutrition and nutrients that you need. So I think those are great points. Any other thoughts on that? Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, and I love the points about, getting the proper nutrition, and it's just harder maybe in that 4-hour window. I know that the optimal fast is usually like 14 to 16 hours maybe. So, but I sure wouldn't shoot for 20 right off the bat. I would definitely go low and slow, see what your body can handle at first, because you really might deal with a lot of stressors like being hangry and stuff if you just push it to 20 right off the bat. So listen to your body for sure. Maybe if you're very keto adapted and you got it under control, that can be a goal later on. But I wouldn't start at that point probably.
Yeah, I think listening to your body is such an important skill and tool that we all kind of have to learn. So yeah, when you're intermittent fasting, you should not be struggling or feeling tired and fatigued or crashing. Those are all signs that maybe it's just not the right time right now, or maybe it's just not appropriate for you. And that's something you just kind of have to test out as you start experimenting. So awesome. All right. So we had another question come in on fasting. So I think people are wondering, what types of drinks can you have while you're fasting? So someone's asking, can I consume green powder drinks while fasting? Anything else they can kind of have while they're going through that period? Rachel, go ahead.
Yeah, there's quite a few options during fasting, you're generally looking for your non-caloric fluids, as Kevin mentioned. So that's your water, your tea, and your coffee with well, you could do cream, but you're definitely going to want to do no sugar. You can add some fat into that coffee. So especially something like MCT oil is going to go really well with that fast, because MCT oil is going to promote the production of ketones in your body. So that's actually going to be really beneficial for a fast. You know, and you can add some fats, other fats into that. So for some people, they may be able to do some cream into their coffee, but you're definitely going to want to avoid the sugar. Beyond that, I would look at water infusions. So even just putting some cucumber, some lemon into your water and letting it sit overnight. And my personal favorite is actually mint water. So you can just put some mint into your water, let it sit overnight, and drink that in the morning. And then you could also do sparkling water, which would be a really good option for that if you're feeling really bored with your drinks.
Yeah, and Kevin's nodding his head that he completely agrees with you. And yes, Mark Sisson does talk about how when he's fasting, he will add some types of fats to his coffee or something like that, just because, it does help encourage the body to promote fat burning and use fat for fuel. And the same with MCT oil as well. But we always talk about if you haven't used MCT oil before, starting low and going slow with it, and then, working your way up. So those are all great suggestions. We had another one with fasting as well. So this one was specifically towards women. Are there considerations for women who want to try intermittent fasting? Any thoughts on that? Angeline, did your hand go up?
Yeah, my hand is up.
Okay,
sorry.
Cool.
So, men and women are inherently a bit different as far as our metabolism and our hormones. And so because women's hormones fluctuate, they tend to fluctuate more than men's. As a woman, interested in intermittent fasting and in this process of, entering into keto, you definitely want to dial in on other stressors in your life that might interfere with your hormones as well. And those are really the things that Kevin covered today, because all of those things can interfere with your hormones. And so, dial in on your sleep and your stress. Don't over-exercise. Take it easy. And once you have those really well, you're doing all those very well, then try intermittent fasting.
Yep, I think those are all really valid points. We don't want to overextend ourselves. Maybe we just want to, start with a couple of things, like get started with that metabolism reset, then start keto, let our bodies just have time to adjust, get fat adapted, and then maybe start thinking about extending, or I guess minimizing that eating window. So great points. Any other thoughts on that one? All right. Okay, so we'll move into some other questions beyond intermittent fasting. And this one kind of goes back to drinks. So is bulletproof coffee okay while fasting? We talked about this a little bit. Kevin, go ahead.
So that's the coffee with like the MCT in it. Is that kind of, what we're talking about? Okay. So, I think it is for the most part. Like Aaron said, we might not be used to like MCTs at first, but souping up that coffee, giving our brain some fuel sources that it can convert to ketones pretty readily, use as brain fuel or for energy, can be pretty beneficial. I think it's worth experimenting around with making your coffee, a little more beneficial than just black coffee. They add, you can add tons of stuff to it. The MCT, you can have some cacao powder. We put tons of things in our bulletproof coffees when we do that. I don't know. I think it's just fine to experiment around with it to get that extra boost and to really help your body, understand how to burn fat for fuel. So, yeah.
Yeah, I personally love adding cinnamon. It just kind of gives it a good flavor. Another good spice is cardamom. That's always really tasty as well. So awesome. Well, we have a few questions about exercise. So I think we'll address those now. One person said they do a lot of working out, and with keto, they feel fatigued. Is that okay for now? Should they start considering adding in some carbs around workouts, or should they wait until after a 6 to 8 week reset? What are some of your recommendations for people who exercise a lot and are starting, keto and might be feeling that fatigue? Rachel, go ahead.
It's totally going to be personalized, and I know that's not an exciting answer, but you do have to listen to your body as well as your exercise goals. So if you're someone who's just exercising for fitness and you have the ability to reduce your exercises a little while you're in that keto adaptation phase, that first 6 or 8 weeks, that's a really good option. It is going to be a little bit harder to get into ketosis the first time, really get fat adapted if you are carb cycling or adding more carbs around your workouts. So, it's totally up to you. But if you can reduce your exercise, that's a really great option, at least at first. And then it's going to depend on what exercises you're doing as well. If you're pushing those anaerobic workouts where you're just, doing something like high intensity interval training, that's something that often is supported by adding in some carbs, where if you're doing something like long distance running, that's very amiable to just pushing straight through keto and burning fat as you work out. So it does depend on, your workout goals and what kind of workouts you're doing.
Yeah, I think those are definitely all valid points. And if you are more of a casual exerciser, just considering scaling back on those workouts at first, and again, giving your body time to adjust and adapt to being fat adapted. Any supplements? Oh, Angeline, go ahead.
I was just about to mention supplements. So I would definitely add in electrolytes, so potassium, magnesium, salt. As you're, moving towards ketosis, you are losing water, and with that minerals. You're releasing the stored glucose, and so you need to replenish the electrolytes that you're losing because they are crucial for energy. So that's what I would add for sure.
Kevin, go ahead if you want to add on that.
You got to try the exogenous ketones. They're great. They help your body understand what a ketone is a little better. But once you're metabolically flexible and you're utilizing ketones more often, it's like the perfect pre-workout. Your body knows exactly what to do with those. You get a lot of energy from them. They taste really good. For the most part, the ones here I've loved, but it's definitely worth checking out if you're getting fatigued in your workouts. Very, very beneficial stuff there. So, yeah.
Yeah. Those are all great recommendations and everything I was thinking as well. And this next question is about, counting carbs. And it seems that there's a few different methods out there, and they're just wanting to know, do you count total or net carbs? And we'll kind of touch on this next week, but just as a little precursor, we might as well go ahead and address it now. Kevin, go ahead.
Okay. I mean, there's probably all sorts of ideas around this. I like to net them out personally. I feel like, your fiber isn't really working the same way as some of the other portions of starchy carbs and stuff. So, I like to net the carbs out personally, which gives you a little boost there. What else? Yeah, I guess that's the main thing is I do the net carbs personally. I forgot the question. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's getting late into the evening. It was. Do you recommend counting net or total carbs. And
Okay.
you kind of said that you lean on counting towards net carbs, but like you said, there's a couple of different schools of thought with that. And we're going to talk about this next week too, that Mark Sisson, he just tries to keep things easier and simplify things. So he actually leans more towards total carbs, just to kind of, because there's, you've got a lot going on. Keto's a new thing for you. You might be tracking, and just to kind of simplify your life, that's what he recommends. But again, I don't think there's a right or a wrong way per se. It's really just what works best for you. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I would say it's a personal choice. And if you find it's easier to do those total carbs, then maybe you don't count the super high fibrous foods. Maybe you don't have to eventually, count those vegetables or avocados or the Flackers crackers, the crackers we can have on keto.
Which I do love those crackers, and I highly recommend trying them. Great. Well, great input on that one. And this is a great question about blood sugar balance. So this person's asking about what are some foods that will help lower your glucose and raise your ketone levels. I can repeat it again. So what are some foods that will help lower your glucose and raise your ketones? So Rachel, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, so generally you're looking at fat and protein as supporting healthy blood sugar levels. They're not going to contribute to raising the blood sugar, with the exception that if you get a lot of excess protein, that can actually break down into feeding the blood sugar, but that's going to be pretty high levels. So what you're looking at is increasing the blood sugar is going to be carbohydrates and actual sugar. So when you're trying to keep a steady blood sugar, you're really leaning on those fats and those proteins. And what you're looking at with promoting ketone levels is basically the absence of those carbohydrates and sugar. Your goal is to keep your insulin levels low. And they did talk about it last week, but essentially when you're spiking the blood sugar, you're promoting the production of insulin, and that is what shuts off ketone production. So to promote ketones, you're looking at fat and protein, and then you can also add in some of the supplements, like I know we've talked about MCT oil, which is the healthy fat that is very keto-friendly, specifically promotes the production of ketones.
Awesome. That's all great information. Any other ideas from Angeline or Kevin? Go ahead, Angeline.
Well, just to keep it simple, if you're looking at your plate and you want a keto-aligned meal, you want a low carb, high fat, medium protein meal, you fill half your plate with non-starchy vegetables. Once you get in ketosis, we're taking out, or moving towards ketosis, we're taking out the root vegetables, but all the other vegetables. So half your plate, get a moderate amount of protein, and then just be very generous with your fats. And that in itself is what we're doing with the keto diet, and that will lower glucose, and that is the goal, to be able to burn fat. So if you can just keep that image in your head, it's really helpful.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to add. And we're next week in our week 3 class, we're going to revisit and talk again about, what types of foods are included in the metabolism reset and how that's different than the keto reset. But both of them, regardless of what you're following, are going to support healthy blood sugar balance. Keto maybe a little bit more, but we'll revisit that next week and give, some more specific ideas for people to help answer that question. So great points. All right, we've got a couple of minutes left. So I'll end this week with a fun one for you guys. And Kevin, you kind of addressed this a lot while you were talking. But what are some of your favorite stress management techniques? We talked a lot about stress, but as nutritional health coaches, you probably have a lot of great ideas for managing stress. So we just want to hear from you and what your favorite ideas are. Go ahead, Rachel. I think I saw your hand raised.
Yeah, it totally depends on, on you, but for me, it's family, especially my dogs. If you've ever had a bad day and you just come home and have a dog on your lap, and maybe it's a cat, that's going to completely reduce your stress levels. I think I've actually seen studies where they actually saw a reduction in cortisol from hugging dogs. I know back in college, they would bring around dogs on finals week, so that's a great option. There's also other things. Sometimes ironically, focusing on something fun can help with stress levels. So things like adult coloring books, or even something like knitting or crocheting.
Well, that's amazing that your university allowed you to have dogs during finals week. I am super jealous. So that's all awesome. Angeline or Kevin?
Well, I know everyone talks about meditation all the time, and I'm not going to say that I'm like the world's greatest, that I meditate every day, but I will tell you that when I do, and it doesn't even have to be for very long, like I have meditated for literally 5 minutes, I've set the alarm, and it is a total reset. If you are stressed out, everyone can take 5 minutes. If you can work up to 10 or 15 minutes, it will reset you. So I can't say enough about how, I've done it at work, I've done it in the mornings, or just taken some time in the evening. Beyond that, I also like really high vibe music, like just really nice music. That is a real stress reliever for me as well.
Yeah, and hopefully dancing to that music. Well, yeah, and there's tons of great meditation apps out there now. If you don't know, how to get started, they can be a great tool and resource for you to do so. And I know I definitely love going for a run. Exercising is super helpful for me. But now that people mention they run with goats, I need to run with goats now. So we'll see if I can get some goats, or maybe I'll go to a farm and run there. So awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys. We're out of time for this evening, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up our questions. I want to thank everyone again who joined us tonight. Thank you to Kevin for leading week 2 and teaching us all about lifestyle habits to support keto success. Thank you to Rachel and Angeline for helping answer those questions. And just a reminder, don't forget to join us next Wednesday, February 3rd at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central Time for week 3 of our Keto Reset Live class series. So have a great rest of your evening, everyone, and we will see you next week.